Hey guys, thank you for joining me back here again at the 401 Files HQ. It's an absolute pleasure to have you all here again. And this time again, I'm going to do another story from a subscriber of ours. I've had a quick skim through. This seems like a really creepy story and one that I think that you guys will enjoy quite a lot. Just before we do jump in, I want to remind you guys that if you've ever had a strange experience or a strange encounter, something's happened to you in your life that you can't quite explain, please feel free to send them experiences in, your stories, to 401files@gmail.com. That's 401files@gmail.com. Send your stories in, your experiences, and let's get them read out on the channel. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. This experience happened to me a few years back in a small Eastern European town. It was midwinter and had been snowing heavily the day prior to this event. I remember the day feeling unusually cold, even for that time of year. I decided to take my pet husky out to the woods since he absolutely loves the snow, and I also enjoyed the scenery. The trip was uneventful and nothing appeared to be out of the norm, or at least for the most part. I took our usual trip to a nearby field and started to head back home. After a short time walking on the single track, I made the decision to go off the path and then start walking through the denser part of the woods. My intent here was to enjoy the beautiful scenery as I walked through the snow-covered forest. I rarely went into that part of the forest because even in broad daylight, the trees somehow made it seem like it was still dusk. This part of the forest was so dense that only a thin layer had managed to penetrate and settle on the ground. After walking in the forest for only a few minutes, we came up to a small clearing, and that's when I immediately noticed something. Snow prints. I wanted to keep in mind that it had been snowing all day prior, so these prints must have been relatively fresh. As I moved closer to examine the prints, they seemed to have started from a nearby rabbit hole under a tree. Nothing too crazy here, just a rabbit, or so I thought. The rabbit prints stretched for about 10 meters, heading towards the bottom of a solid tree. Then they just disappeared. No hole, no more prints, and no rabbit. I walked over to the tree to investigate as I was quite confused as to where the prints could have gone. As I neared the tree, I was completely stunned by what I saw. Just where the rabbit prints had vanished into thin air, I then saw the beginning of what looked like human prints. Barefoot human footprints. At this point, I started to get this terrible pit feeling inside my stomach, and I was starting to question everything. After all, how could this be? The whole time that I was stood by the tree examining the prints, my dog was trying to pull me away and continued to bark very loudly. From what I could tell, the feet were that of a very large person. The footprints stretched off into the woods for a good 30 meters or so. As I started to follow them along, I realised something else wasn't quite right. The rabbit footprints were all in a straight line, while the ones that I was looking at, the human ones, were kind of in a zigzag pattern, as if whoever had created them was walking for the first time, or was extremely intoxicated. The pitted feeling inside my stomach started growing even more, and I started to run back to the main road, all the while fearing for my life. This is the first time that I've ever shared this story with anyone, mainly due to the fear of being ridiculed or called crazy. I've never walked my dog out in that forest since, and I still don't have the slightest idea what that could have been. Thank you for taking the time to read this out and sharing my experience on your channel. Wow, that is a creepy story. Very crazy. Imagine being in real life experiencing that. So you walk your dog on the same route day in day out, and eventually one day you decide to take a different route which takes you off through the woods, and in the woods off the beaten track you find these prints that just miraculously disappear into thin air. Where the prints of the rabbit disappear, human footprints then begin, and they then go off into the woods for 30 meters. That's a very creepy story, and I think we would never understand or be able to relate to how creepy that would be unless you was this guy and you knew the area he was in. I know for a fact from some of the woods that I travel in and some of the forests that I explore, if I was to come across something like that, it would definitely lead to a lot of questions. So that's a very interesting and creepy story. Thank you so much for sending me that in. I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as I did. It really does make you think. What was out there walking off the beaten track, picking rabbits into thin air? Strange. As always guys, I've been Ben from the 401 Files, and I hope you've enjoyed this story. Like I said, just as much as I have. If you have got an experience that you want to share with the channel, then please feel free to do that. Send them all across to me at 401files@gmail.com, and they will make the channel. And yeah, until next time, take it easy, look after yourselves. Peace.